Welcome to Mac Talk, a Middle Tennessee podcast from Mott Haven Arts and Cultural Center in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm your announcer, Kennedy Alpin. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at the Bryson McCarley State Farm Agency. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Thank you, Kennedy, and welcome everyone to Mac Talk. I'm your host, John Pitcher. We like to think of the Mac as a cultural town square where we encourage everyone to be their creative best. So, okay, Kennedy, we're talking hip-hop today. So let me ask you, who's your favorite hip-hop artist?
So some of my favorite artists in hip-hop, I would say Kendrick Lamar. Obviously, I've talked about him a few times on this podcast. Don Toliver has been a recent favorite. MF Doom, really like him.
Okay, tell me about MF Doom. That sounds interesting.
Yes, so he based his persona off of Dr. Doom from the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
A lot of his stuff uses like old cartoon samples or like really interesting cover samples. Like one I think was a sample from a cover of Space Oddity by David Bowie.
Okay. Which is actually a really good idea.
Oh yeah, big time. But whenever it comes to tracks, one of my favorite tracks is Like That by Metro Boomin, Future, and Kendrick Lamar. And then Fourth Chamber by Jeezy off of Liquid Swords and from 1995.
Okay.
So,
well, do you have any favorites locally?
Ooh. I mean, they're on the podcast today, but it is 6-1 Tribe.
6-1 Tribe. And of course, you were instrumental, so to speak, in kind of pointing these guys out,
yes.
right?
I learned about them through WNXP in Nashville. They play them pretty regularly. Uh-huh. And yeah, big fan. They
are here. And so let's go ahead and introduce today's guest. Aaron Dethrage is co-founder of Nashville's hip-hop collective 6-1 Tribe. Like New York's Wu-Tang Clan, Nashville's collective boasts a large roster of rappers, producers, and musicians. Together, these amazing artists have come together to create a diverse and contemporary Nashville culture. We're thrilled that Aaron is here to speak with us about 6-1 Tribe. Aaron Dethrage, welcome to Mac Talk.
Thank you for having me.
I am so stoked to be here. This place is incredible. We are at Eastside Manor, which is where the magic happens for the amazing collective 6-1 Tribe. Aaron, you're one of the co-founders of 6-1 Tribe. I've been listening nonstop to every cut that I can get in the last few weeks and absolutely love it. For people out there who still don't know what 6-1 Tribe is, what is 6-1 Tribe? Tell us about it.
So 6-1 Tribe has kind of settled into a like Wu-Tang-esque collective of like a set roster of artists, kind of from different circles and different like people that didn't know each other outside of the collective before we brought it. There's certainly pockets of people that grew up together, people that have been friends for 20 years. But it is a group that was largely assembled from a kind of like open call mentality of just inviting the Nashville hip hop scene to come and participate in collaborative music making. Initially, we conceptualized it as a tornado relief record where we were just trying to bring people together to make a single album back in 2020.
Remember it well.
COVID hit 2 weeks after the tornado. And so it kind of like put a damper on our plans of like what this was going to be. But as that year went on and life slowed down, we really started to kind of see the people that like saw the vision for this as like people that wanted this to be something beyond just, hey, I want to come in and do a song to help raise some money for tornado relief. It was people who really just like liked the collaborative spirit and liked the environment. And over the years, it kind of, just shifted into, well, what if we just like start a group? And the idea was in 2019, when I first started trying to like plug in with the Nashville hip hop scene, I realized that there wasn't a single location where you could just like figure out who was in the Nashville hip hop scene. There wasn't, no one was doing the work of trying to consolidate everything. If you didn't know who to look up, you didn't know how to find them. It was a lot of word of mouth. It was a lot of, you had to kind of like come across an artist organically. There was not a resource to just kind of discover a lot of artists all at once. And this is the long-term result of that. Just trying to bring people together to more thoroughly represent the kind of like depth and variety of the Nashville hip hop scene.
Okay. 6-1 Tribe, is a group of sorts. It's not really a band. That confuses some people. I think we've had a conversation about that, like people who actually are supposed to know, maybe don't know. But you do take some inspiration, I think, from the Wu-Tang Clan from Staten Island. Is that right?
Absolutely. I would say our big inspiration points are definitely Wu-Tang Clan. A huge thing that gave me the initial idea, I'm actually wearing my Dreamville hat right now, but J. Cole's record label, Dreamville, does a series of recordings called the Revenge of the Dreamers albums, where they do collective records featuring the artists of their entire label. They did a Revenge of the Dreamers 3 album that I think was rumored to have something like 450 collaborators invited between the producers and artists. It was this hugely expansive, hey, come and make music with us, open call type thing. And seeing the documentary about that is what led to those early Tribe sessions of just kind of like throwing out social media invites to just strangers and being like, this is an opportunity, come out, come ready to like be respectful and to, to work with people, but also come like ready to show your best stuff and to kind of like impress people. And that was a big one. And then also just kind of being in the South, outcast in the Dungeon family, and kind of the collective mentality of early Atlanta hip hop is something that we like reference a lot. Groups like Brockhampton and Odd Future that are a little more kind of like multimedia, video and audio, are also huge reference points. We have just like a lot of creatives in a lot of different fields that are interested in this and have kind of tried to adapt and like make space for involvement from a lot of different types of people.
Yeah. Well, J. Cole, you mentioned that in Dreamville. That's out of Atlanta? Was that?
It's out
was
of.
Was that recorded out of Atlanta?
They're a North Carolina-based label. I think he's from Fayetteville. I think the label is maybe run out of Raleigh. And they did the sessions in North Carolina.
So it's Southern hip hop.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, I think the first time the Wu-Tang Clan came up with something big, it was a cut called Protect Your Neck. Mm-hmm. And if I'm not mistaken, there were like, 9 MCs in that, no choruses.
Yeah.
And the first radio people to get a hold of it were blown away by it, but also kind of confused.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So you guys do something similar, right?
Yeah, we do our best to make as many pop accessible records as possible, to try and think of over the years and over kind of repeated sessions, I've been able to kind of prove to these artists that there's always going to be an opportunity. You don't have to get on every beat. We need to think of these songs as songs, something that are consumable by the average listener without overwhelming them. So we'll do a posse cut every now and then where we'll have a 5 or 6 minute long song with 8 or 10 people on it. But largely, we try to think of these more as like, how can we preserve the individuality of what we do, but create something that is a little more digestible. And so I would say while we do certainly have those moments, our thought process is often like how to serve the song, not how to represent as many people on a song, with few exceptions.
Okay. I am interested, how many, just to give people a bigger sense of 6-1 Tribe as a community, how many rappers, producers, designers, and editors are involved in it right now?
I couldn't even give you a definitive number. I would say I kind of ballpark at 24 most of the time. It's kind of my reference point. We have had kind of like a set roster of 14 or 15 artists for a while now, where there are kind of consistent involvement from that many.
And you're talking about the rappers.
I'm just
right?
talking about vocal performers.
Right.
On top of that, we probably have 6 or 8 producers that we very regularly work with that I would say would consider themselves a part of this as well. Myself, I don't do either of those roles, but I work on every single song that we do, I produce a little bit, but that's not my main role. We have videographers, we have, design people. So somewhere I would say between 24 and 30, 24 to 30 people.
And you co-founded it with one of the singers, with G-Slab, right?
Yeah, with G-Slab.
Yeah. How did you come across him? How did you guys get together?
He was in, I think, the second session that I put together for this. I put together the first open call session, and I think we had maybe 5 or 6 artists out. Very few of them who actually were in kind of the current iteration of Tribe. It was just the connections to the hip hop scene that I had at all. They were the people that I knew to do the first session with. And one of them was Corduroy Clemens, who has been with the group since that very first day. And he was kind of the like access point into a lot of the pre-established hip hop scene. He knew Slab, invited him into the next session. Slab knew several people, like G Slab, Namir Blade, Black Whistle, Kashmir Cruel, Rio Tokyo, Corduroy. There's just kind of like a whole pocket of these guys that have kind of grown up together, have like known each other for an extended period of time. And when Corduroy was out here, saw the space, saw the potential of what was happening, he kind of served as like a vet for me to other people to bring them out. And so Slab was at that second session and has been at everything since then.
That's so interesting because a lot of the original artists with Wu-Tang Clan also knew each other from that borough.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they went way back and they sort of knew each other predating the music even.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, the thing, I really loved getting to watch the Wu-Tang documentary in the midst of making all of this, because so much of like making music together also kind of like bridged animosity between them. Like they weren't friends. Some of them were, but some of them were adversaries.
Right.
Some of them like
that was
really hated
there were
each
some
other.
tough neighborhoods there.
Yeah. And I mean, they kind of had reasons to despise the idea of collaborating, but something Slab said really early on about this that I see in collectives like this is he said, you know, as artists, we all have egos because that's what keeps you going, is like the belief in yourself and the belief that you're great and that you're worth people believing in. But none of us have an ego that is bigger than the mission that we see of like our collective work.
Right.
And with groups like Wu-Tang Clan and Tribe, I just feel that kind of setting aside of self a little bit, where like even when people do know each other, or especially when they don't, that's not really anything that affects how people view collaborating, you know.
Right.
Like it's a lot of just openness to the talent that people have outside of how they do or don't know them outside of the group.
Of course, since some of these guys had adversarial relationships, certainly in Wu-Tang's case,
Yeah.
and others, they also, you know, put aside their personalities and feelings because they want to bring their A game, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they want to make sure that
Yeah.
they absolutely do their best.
Yeah. When there's 9
that
guys on
really
the song,
comes out,
you got to
doesn't it?
make sure that you say something that stands out.
Yeah. So you really have to bring that,
It's
that A game.
it's amazing to watch. It's not a competitive spirit, but it is definitely a self-motivating, you know, everyone sees other people excel and it just brings out a desire to meet them there, you know, kind of across the board. When we're in these sessions and somebody delivers something that is profound or energetic, the whole room feels it, and the whole room's mentality is, how can I match that energy? You know, how can I do as much to give to this as this other person did? And it never gets old to watch.
We're speaking with Aaron Dethrage, a co-founder of Nashville's hip-hop collective 6-1 Tribe. We'll be back after this important message.
Bryson McCarley State Farm Agency is a strong supporter of arts education. That's because the arts foster creativity, critical thinking, and emotional expression. Students engaged in the arts often perform better academically and develop a lifelong appreciation for learning. This message was brought to you by Bryson McCarley State Farm Agency. Bryson McCarley, helping individuals, families, and small businesses protect what matters most. For more information, go to brysonmccarleyagency.com.
We're back with 6-1 Tribe co-founder Aaron Dethrage. Well, you started it, co-founded this because you did not have a sense of, you know, a locale for the hip hop community here. It seems like the real great strength or secret of having a collective like this is that it becomes its own ecosystem, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Absolutely.
now all of a sudden, all these guys come together and they start to inspire each other and they start to, you know, create their own energy.
Well, and like
within the system, right? And so all of a sudden you got a lot of new music coming out.
And you just have resources for anything you might want for your individual art. You know, as these guys have continued to make solo albums, they suddenly have 24 new collaborators to consider. You know, a solo set from a member of Tribe very quickly starts to feel like a Tribe show, because before it's over, they brought 3 or 4 people from the group out, even if it's just promoting their solo material, because there's just, they have all these these collaborators that they can just lean on for their own art. Video makers, photographers, like our whole thing was to not just build a resource pool to allow us to kind of like build something for the collective, but to connect the individuals to those resources. And we've tried to do a lot of that too, as much as possible.
I think a typical cut from 6-1 Tribe might feature anywhere from 3 to 6 rappers.
I don't think we have any with 2. 3 is as small as we get, and I think our biggest productions we have a few that have like 8. I think 8 or 9.
Well, a definitive one I think is Paradise Lost. So you've got. I mean, and I say
that.
definitive. That means I've watched it 50 times,
for sure.
right? The video.
It's a standout.
You've got on there. You have G Slab. You have Andre Wolf. You have Black Wizzle. You have Rio Tokyo. I'm wondering, you have all of these as an engineer. How do you maintain the continuity of the sound while also sort of maintaining each of their identities?
I mean, that's kind of just been my whole goal the whole time, even with not just engineering, but also producing, is maintaining as much of the individuality as possible. I think is the strength of the group. A lot of collectives kind of siphon the sound down. Like there's an alpha artist that everyone is kind of looking towards, of like, well, this is the top dog of this collective, and we're all kind of trying to like sound like we are a part of this. And there's no sense of that in Tribe, where no one is trying to be like anyone else. We're in fact always encouraging people to be as much themselves as possible. And so I've never felt like there was any attempt by anyone to strip away the individuality. And so when I engineer, I kind of think of it the same way. I'm like, I want to preserve as much uniqueness in the voices as possible. I feel like I have had an interesting pedigree to get here. I've spent a lot of time in like live music, specifically live radio, and just like have a lot of experience mixing kind of like large groups with several vocalists and kind of like balancing individual elements like that. And I don't know, when the mentality is make everyone sound as much like themselves as possible, just like there's a lot of little like micro decisions you make along the way to preserve that. But I don't know that there's any one trick about it other than just making it the goal.
What I love about it, and what I think you guys do so well, I mean, my background is in instrumental music and not vocal music, but what I love about it is that when each of these voices, each of these personalities comes in, I'm almost thinking of a jazz big band. And each one of these individual rappers is a different instrument with a different timbre. And they bring out a different personality, and each one has a solo. But it all kind of will stick together like, a Billy Strayhorn, Duke Ellington big band song. It works. So that seems to be, I mean, to me, it just brings a lot of different color and nuance and expressiveness that you wouldn't get otherwise. That's what I love about it.
Well, it's interesting you bring up big band, because over COVID, during the start of this, the 2 things that I was doing was I was starting Tribe, and I was working for a label that owned these big band catalogs, and I was doing remasters of big band music from the 40s and 50s at the same time as I was doing the first Tribe record. So I remastered a Duke Ellington record, and like I went in and did these kind of like modern cleanups of old vinyl records from the 40s to be digitally re-released. And so I did weirdly spend a lot of time thinking about big bands at the same time. I don't know that I spent a lot of time comparing the two, but it was the other genre I was working in at the same time. But yeah, there's a lot about it that is just trying to see what makes someone different as like the most important thing about them. I tell the artist all the time that like your perspective is so tied to your life experience. The stories you can tell the best, the things that people will connect with the most, are the things that are the most you. And I feel that way about their voices and their performance styles too. I really just like, We have an artist who, when we perform live, he cups the capsule of the SM58, and it makes it sound worse. It doesn't make it sound better, but it's how he wants to hold the microphone. And rather than telling him, hey, this is how you have to do something, I just know to EQ his mic differently, you know?
Right.
It's just like little things like that of just trying to like allow people to be who they want to be and to do the things that make them comfortable, and create an environment where the pressure is only on performance and delivery and is not on kind of like conformity at all. It's really just about how much can you push yourself, not how much are you doing to kind of like do something that is other than your like natural instinct. It's a lot of just trying to like pull out of people, not direct them in any specific way.
Okay. Well, let me, in terms of like being from here, tell me a little bit about just the name of the collective 61 Tribe. Is that a play on the area code 615?
It is. Yeah.
So that makes it from here.
It does. Yeah. And I don't know, in the early days, before Slab and I were business partners, a lot of like the branding decisions and stuff was just me kind of trying to figure out how I wanted to promote this. And my partner, my now wife, and I were just talking one day, and we were looking at like 3-6 Mafia and Wu-Tang Clan and kind of like different examples of collectives that used kind of like familial grouping words like Mafia and Clan and Dungeon Family. Like there's a lot of kind of like, we looked at Tribe Called Quest. We thought a lot about how Nashville had responded to hip hop in the first place. A lot of kind of the early conversations around this are kind of about softening the image that the city felt towards hip hop in general, of like, you know, we didn't really want to have a name like 3-6 Mafia or something that had like more of a darker undertone or any kind of like potentially violent undertone, because we were kind of trying to dispel the idea that existed in the city that like hip hop was all of its like negative things first. We were really trying to focus on the ways that like, you know, none of the representation of that side of hip hop and that side of like culture is wrong, but it was such a fixated point in the conversation around music industry professionals that like we wanted the group to be branded with something that didn't make people worried. And so 61 Tribe was a play on the 615 area code, and was kind of like intentionally, when we looked at all the different words that had been used to represent collectives, Tribe is the one that felt the most inviting and the most kind of like representative of how we wanted Nashville, who largely didn't have exposure to hip hop culture, to view this collective of people as a tribe, not as, you know, a gang or a mafia or some of the more like intense words that have been used to like brand collectives. It was kind of a marketing decision very, very early on to create a like softer platform for this.
Okay. Although I can tell you that in the songs, you guys are definitely not compromising in any way.
Oh no. We don't ask.
I mean, you guys come on pretty strong. I mean, I mean, you hold your own with any collective in the country, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. We believe that and feel that too. And like none of this has been about trying to dilute anything. It was just in those early days when it was just me. A lot of the decisions I was making were just around like, well, how can we present this to people who maybe have no exposure to hip hop culture and it not be off-putting? Yeah. And so the name was kind of formed really, really early on with that in mind. But that was probably the only conversation we ever had about like, how do we tailor this content to make it more palatable? Like I distinctly tell the guys not to do that.
Yeah.
You know, I think
and that might appeal to old guys like me, but to the younger listeners, they know the difference. Oh, yeah. And they're not going to listen to anything that's diluted. They won't even listen at all.
Yeah. And I think there's an authenticity and a like fearlessness in the writing that like I would not dare touch. It's just, it taps into some of the most emotional and some of the most lyrical moments of the writing is when everyone is just kind of being honest and telling their own stories.
Yeah. Look, let's talk a little bit about some of the specific rappers and what they bring to this project. I mean, obviously G-Slab, your co-founding partner, brings a certain Southern authenticity. I mean, I love, you know, his sound. How would you describe Andre Wolf and what he brings? Because when I hear him, he's very lyrical.
Yeah.
You know, some of these guys are definitely storytelling rappers, and he's very lyrical. He brings to me he brings a lot of musicality and melody to it.
Yeah, I would say Andre was one of our most kind of musically gifted collaborators. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He plays drums, he plays piano, he plays bass. He's a melodic singer as well as a rapper.
Yeah.
He really
Which makes him a great bridge.
Yeah.
In any of these cuts.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like in Paradise Lost, he's the bridge between, you know, the opening G slab Southern twang, and then you get to Black Whizzle.
Yeah. Well,
totally different sound. But
Whizzle
what
raps on that.
What a great bridge to those two.
I don't know how familiar you are with Whizzle beyond that, but I mean, Whizzle also is a guitar player. Whizzle is an incredible melodic vocalist as well, and is another person that
he was like in the Frist exhibit, wasn't he? Didn't he have something?
Yeah. There was
a guitar exhibit there.
There was a photo series of a bunch of different concert photographers who had photographed musicians with their instruments. It was a really cool exhibit, and
I remember that.
One was
him. Yeah,
one of the photographers photographed Whizzle for that.
That was so cool.
Andre is a good example, but there are several guys that I just feel like are kind of Swiss Army knife type performers that just really beyond just rapping, also sing, also, play an instrument, also produce, can contribute in a lot of different ways. Well,
I have to give my award for the best name to Trip God For Real.
Yeah.
What a great name.
Yeah.
What a great name for this business.
He's amazing.
As well as just a great musician.
Yeah, he is. And really will constantly just try things. He is one of the most least afraid to fail artists when we're in that kind of experimental stage of let's just get in front of a track and see what works. He'll get in there, and the diversity of ideas that he will throw around before he settles on something the range will be huge, because he just kind of wants to try everything from well, how does it sound if I'm fast? How does it sound if I'm slow? How does it sound if I'm screaming? How does it sound if, I'm in a high falsetto? And he just will really experiment with the range of what his very diverse voice can do, from a place of just total freedom when he's approaching a new song. He's incredible to work with.
You mentioned Corduroy Clemens. Could you talk a little bit more about him? Because his name comes up all the time. I see him in the scene, mentioning the scene constantly.
Corduroy is he was kind of the first foundational piece of what became Tribe. He was the first rapper that I got connected with that is still here after all of the 5-6 years of history with it all. I think we did those first sessions at the end of 2019, and he was the one that connected me with Slab. He also, beyond just his kind of dedication and his kind of the resource that he ended up being for introducing me to so many people that are now a part of the project, he's just an incredible writer. He's a great family man. He and his wife have a son that's 8 years old, and I think a lot of the scene and WNXP's support of what we do has kind of hinged on moments of writing like his or Negro Justice's that leans a little more conscious, that leans a little more family man in the writing, because they do it without compromising the lyricism or the intensity of it. It is one of his favorite rappers is Lupe Fiasco, who's an incredible storyteller out of Chicago, and I feel like Corduroy's writing style mirrors a lot of that, where there's no question and no compromise in the skill, while the stories and the perspective seems to kind of lean a little softer and a little more, family friendly without feeling any less authentic. Mm-hmm. But yeah, is just an incredible guy. Is one of the older members of the group and has really done a great job of kind of assuming that responsibility of helping people and of just kind of being a good, consistent role model of what involvement in all this looks like, what participation looks like, what support looks like, has just kind of been like a pillar through it all.
Yeah. Could you tell me a little bit about the creative process, how the sausages are made here? Because I mean, who's coming up with, the words, which are so crucial, and who's coming up with, the tracks, the beats? How does that come together?
I don't know that we have a single set process. I would say the majority of what we have done has been we collect a beat pool ahead of sessions, where we will reach out to producers and just say, hey, we have a tribe session coming up. If you would like your beats represented, can you get us something that we can like drop to everybody?
Oh, that is so cool.
We'll drop the beat pool. We run all of our communication out of an Instagram group chat because that was the only platform that all of the collaborators were on. So we have a very chaotic Instagram message that everybody is a part of. And we will drop the beat pool in the Instagram message a few weeks ahead of the session and just encourage people to write, encourage people to like talk with each other about how they might want to collaborate ahead of time. And then we come out, whoever feels the most excited about a start of an idea, we start with them. And if the room really kind of like vibes with it and is excited, we'll stay on that idea long enough for other people to write to it in the moment. Typically our recording days is a weekend, Saturday, Sunday sessions. We'll do 12-hour blocks where we're here from like noon to midnight both days, do 24 hours over the course of a weekend.
Wow.
And we usually come away with something like 12 to 15 ideas finished or started in a substantial capacity over those 24 hours. And a lot of it's writing in the room. A lot of it is guys kind of creating a strong foundational element before they come in that everybody kind of latches onto. But no, I largely, if someone is performing something, they're the one that wrote it. There is occasional co-writing that goes on, but largely everyone, is a capable and kind of like is someone who wants their voice to be their voice, and a lot of the writing and perspective is just their own most of the time. Yeah.
Okay. We're speaking with Aaron Dethrage, a co-founder of Nashville's hip-hop collective 6-1 Tribe. We'll be back after this important message.
Bryson McCarley Agency reminds us that the arts help build well-rounded communities. Art programs promote education, economic growth, and emotional well-being. Interested in finding something creative for your child to do this summer? Registration for the Max Art Summer Camp is now open. Go to myhumanarts.org/classes for more information.
We're back with 6-1 Tribe co-founder Aaron Dethrage. Aaron, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you find yourself here in Nashville? How did you get into the music business?
I moved from Belmont in 2007. I was an honors student. They let me make my own degree at Belmont, where if you could explain to them why you wanted to study what you wanted to study, and it was the equivalent of a degree, they would just create a one-of-one degree for you.
And Belmont, of course, has this great commercial music program.
It does. It also has a great commercial music business program that
Right.
are entirely separate schools. And I basically pointed at that and said, that's stupid. You should be able to study both of these things in one degree because
You need them both, right? Because you're going to need to be an entrepreneur when you come out, right?
Right. Like some of us not only want to understand how to make music, but we want to understand how to market it. We want to understand how to engineer it. The year that I started, they added a songwriting program that was being taught by Grammy Award-winning songwriters. I was like, there are reasons to study all of this. And so I kind of made a boutique degree that was a 50-50 split between the School of Music Business and the School of Music. I think I called it contemporary music production and engineering. I don't even remember. Doesn't matter. I got a Bachelor of Arts.
Because you do it.
I do it. And frankly, no one asked me what my degree is called. I just, I have one. But yeah, I studied kind of like a hybrid of stuff at Belmont. In 2011, I graduated. I started working out here at Eastside Manor back then. I could talk about the studio all day. It's such a strange.
Well, that was going to be my next question. So let's talk. Let's talk about this amazing place, which is really easy to miss. You don't see it from the road.
Yeah. Well,
which is a good thing, right?
It is one of the benefits of it. Is it really like artists can come out here and they just kind of disappear. You know, we're in the middle of Inglewood, in the middle of East Nashville, walking distance from some amazing restaurants. But when you're on the property, you kind of forget where you are. You're just here. And it has been a retreat, a commune for artists to come and settle in, make records, spend extended time working on music. And it's just an amazing place. The guy that owns it and built it is a guy named Todd Burkett, who's been out here almost 20 years and is not an engineer, is not a musician, just really loves the community of music being made and wanted to create a space where people could do that here. And over the years has allowed countless people to do a lot of incredible things out here. But at the beginning of COVID, I kind of pitched the tribe idea to him, and he just fell in love with the idea of supporting this community that didn't really have another place, didn't have people that looked as them as like people that were supposed to be helped. And I mean, now we're all family. We come out here and do big community dinners where we're not working. It's just all the members of tribe and the house owners and us, and we do chili cookouts and bonfires, and we're all just very close friends at this point.
So it's become like a rap camp.
Kind of, yeah. But I mean, it really like, I don't know if you, we have a documentary kind of buried in our YouTube that we did in like our first full year. And it's really amazing to just like, there are all these little cutaways where the guys are just talking individually, kind of just like spilling out for 30 to 60 seconds about this or that. And the perspectives that they give about like what it feels like to be out here and what it means to them. Like plenty of people talk about like the creative side of it, but everybody talks about the healing side of it, the community side of it. They compare it to like church. They compare it to, like their family. It is just a level of more than anything about rap at the end of the day that like, there are some times where I just have to like remind people that that's what we're out here to do. I'm like, sometimes it just feels like we're all just friends hanging out. I'm like, no, actually we're trying to like get some work done too.
I guess the cool thing there though is that since everybody feels so comfortable with everyone else, you're willing to try lots of different things.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And with friends.
Yeah, exactly. And that has been an environment that we have like fought to keep for years now, of just no one says anything negative about anyone, If you think that something could be better, that gets communicated in a way that is not telling someone that they suck, is not telling someone that their idea was bad. It's just, we try to preserve as much respect as possible. And that has just led to an environment where people feel very safe, just trying things and being themselves, and making space for other people to try things. If they can see that someone else has an idea, we had a session a few months back, and one of the guys said, for the first time, I'm hearing these beats and I'm not even hearing where I go. I'm hearing like who in the group is the right person for this song.
Oh, wow.
And like,
so they're really getting to understand the collective and know it.
And understand each other's strengths outside of just focusing on their own.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That is so amazing.
And like, boy, I could not tell you how that happened other than like, we just tried, but that was certainly not anything we had like a scripted way of maintaining. It was just a priority that we made sure that was how communication happened out here, that like, we didn't want anyone to feel shut down. We didn't want anyone to feel like the leader that was making decisions. We wanted collaboration in its like purest form.
Mm-hmm. Well, having said all that, where do you hope to see 6-1 Tribe in 5 years?
Our big focus right now is we have some people that are talking to us about distribution deals, about kind of taking our catalog and creating a like sync library to kind of create some opportunities for the beats or for choruses or this or that to be featured in commercials or movies. Or I see a lot of potential for our music to succeed in different ways. I think that like I'm hopeful for that. I'm hopeful that we have another album or two in us as a collective over these next few years, and that we can do a few more shows. We're continuing to put on our annual 615 Day event, which is our kind of celebration of local music in general. I think that it's hard not to be realistic about like how difficult all of this is, and that like at the end of the day, I think our hope exists outside of like expectations of like what it can become. Our hope is kind of just at this point about like what it means to us and like what we can achieve and the results and like what that leads to are all things we work towards, but are not really the metrics by which we're kind of like measuring all of this anymore. Because there's just been so much frustration along the way of, you know, I won't say who this meeting was with, but we had a meeting in the early days that went on for months about involvement from an industry resource in town, and to the point that they paired us with someone in their like financial department to discuss different tiers of financial investment, what that would look like, what we would do with that money. Really like felt like it was people who believed in something. And after months of putting together that pitch, getting them all the information they needed, breaking down 3 different budget proposals, I went into the meeting, and 3 minutes into the meeting, the guy just stopped me and he said, you know, I appreciate what you're doing here. This is a good song. This is a good idea. These are talented people. We're really not interested in supporting an artist that doesn't already have 50,000 followers on Instagram. We're just like, if you don't have an audience that is big enough to prove that people like it, we're not looking to help you build that audience. And so a lot of the support that has been kind of dangled in front of us over the years has also kind of just been ripped away from a level of like, well, we really only want to support a proven product. And that's been disheartening to hear for years now at this point, you know? It's been disheartening to see that, like, despite us knowing how special it is, despite advocates like WNXP and the scene seeing it and championing us and giving us opportunities, that, like, the industry itself, the people that have the potential to do more, to invest, to connect us, are often looking for a much safer bet. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think that we're not really interested in making a lot of the decisions that make us a safer bet. We're not really interested in trying to write songs from the same perspective of Nashville, of like, how do I write a hit? How do I write something universal? How do I take myself out of this enough that more people connect to it? We're kind of just trying to do the opposite and create very like unfiltered art and market it as best as possible. And I mean, my hope is just that like 5 years from now, we're still doing that. You know, 5 years from now, we're still making records that someone like you comes across and like wants to listen to that much. Yeah. I hope more people feel that way, but I hope that more than anything that we don't compromise that after more and more frustrating conversations from the industry about, I don't know, needing this to look like something that it's not.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the world of contemporary live music, I guess, right? Everything's based on algorithms. Yeah. Kind of crazy. Well, you know, I have to say, I think what you guys have done is create you're creating a real catalog, a real songbook of things that are going to be meaningful for a long time to come. And that is important in itself, I think. So look, hey man, Aaron Dethrage, 6-1 Tribe, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been listening to Mac Talk from Mott Haven Arts and Cultural Center. Our mission is to educate, elevate, and encourage our community through the transformative power of the arts. If you're interested in transforming your creative life, check out our website at motthavenarts.org. Our guest today was Aaron Dethrage, co-founder of Nashville's hip-hop collective 6-1 Tribe. Our podcast music was written by Nashville composer Christina Spinay. I'm Kennedy Alpin. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.